Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would talk about this particularly interesting subject, at least a subject that I found very interesting. And of course, for those of you that have not heard the most recent news, and I believe that this news came out a couple days ago, that this was a storyline from about a couple days ago. But Teofimo Lopez, I believe that he ended up having an interview on a certain boxing, I don't want to say website, but I think YouTube channel. I believe it was Counterpunch Boxing News or something like that. Another boxing channel that's out there, decently popular. Well, Teofimo Lopez recently had an interview with somebody, and he, of course, is kind of somewhat in the hot seat right now because of some certain inflammatory statements. And of course, certain statements that a lot of people are calling quote unquote racist. And I'm going to go into what I truly believe about Teofimo Lopez. And, did I believe that the comments that he made were quote unquote racist? Do I believe that he's a quote unquote racist or blah, 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 all sort of stuff? What do I believe is the context behind it? Anyways, I'm going to review a video by that of DontaesBoxingNation, and I thought that I would talk about it now that I did a little bit of research on it, and I kind of already had a prediction of more than likely what I thought was the issue, but pretty much after what I've read, I pretty much have confirmed my suspicions about, in my view, more than likely why Teofimo Lopez has said the things of what he said. But anyways, Dante's Boxing Nation is going to talk about it. Let's tune in.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So we all know Teofimo Lopez is the latest to come out of the closet when it comes to how he feels about black people in general. Teo made it clear he didn't have a problem with ESPN and Top Rank promoting Tyson Fury, Lomachenko, Naoya Inoue, and all the other non-black fighters. But it really burns up Teofimo when he sees black fighters being promoted by ESPN.
This is my last fight on ESPN. Oh. Yeah. Because this is no longer, this is no longer, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. This is why this fight means everything to me. If they want the black fighters, they could keep them.
That's like going into a restaurant. You see a whole bunch of customers sitting down eating. You see about 5 black couples eating. And you look at the manager and you say, you know what? If you guys are going to be serving black people, you guys can keep your food. I'll find me another restaurant. And this is what Teofimo Lopez is saying to ESPN.
No, in my view, that's not really what Teofimo Lopez is saying to ESPN. But like regular, Dante's Boxing Nation does not really have the intelligence to dissect what truly is going on. And there's no offense against Dante, and that's not me in any way saying that what Teofimo said was not inflammatory. Now, what I'm going to say is this. Do I believe that his statements were in any way possibly racist? It could have been. Who knows? Maybe Teofimo Lopez, maybe he does have a problem with quote unquote black people or black fighters. It could very much be that. There could be a sense of jealousy or insecurity. Who the hell knows? But I'm just going to say this personally about Teofimo Lopez because I think the reason why he's really been on the hot seat, not just really for this subject, but really for the past couple of years, he's been involved in so much bullshit that really he did not need to get involved in. Not necessarily in any crimes or anything like that, but baby mama drama, this bullshit when it comes down to it, his loss to George Kambosos, all this has stemmed, in my view, from certain life decisions that more than likely has not benefit for him, probably choosing the wrong woman. And on top of that, it's very obvious that, in my view, that Teofimo Lopez, that he has not moved past that George Kambosos loss. That's just the way that I see it. And I think Teofimo Lopez, that he knows in his mind that a lot of people are not looking at him as the quote-unquote takeover, that they're looking at him as the quote-unquote fake over. And I think that that has been creeping in the back of Teofimo's mind ever since that he lost to George Kambosos Jr. He beat Vasily Lomachenko, I believe, all the way back in 2018. No, actually, excuse me. I don't think it was 2018. But whenever he did it, maybe it was 2020, 21. I can't remember, to be honest, at this point. Actually, I think that I got my date majorly wrong. I think it was maybe 2021. Either way, whichever year it was, Teofimo Lopez, he was looked at as the next up-and-comer. He was looked at as the next guy at the 135-pound weight division. And he was on top of the world. And I think that Teofimo Lopez, that he let it get to his head a little bit. And in that fight against George Kambosos, a fight that he should have not taken lightly. In my view, he did not fight the best of fights. And ever since then, Teofimo Lopez, he's not been able to take that loss well at all. And it's truly affected his life. And in my view, it's affected his boxing career. Because ever since then, he really has not had the same confidence as a fighter. I thought that in the Sandor Martin fight, and a lot of people personally thought that he lost that fight. I think I had Teofimo winning it just barely in the fight. But you could certainly argue that Sandor Martin possibly pulled off the upset as well. And this is just my view of it. This is a big part of the reason why I don't see Teofimo Lopez beating Josh Taylor. I don't think that he's anywhere near mentally well enough to beat someone like a Josh Taylor. I think that Josh Taylor, on top of that, has always been more skilled than that of a Teofimo Lopez. Now, I'm not saying that Teofimo, that he doesn't have certain skills and that he doesn't have a puncher's chance. He has great power, but Josh Taylor has good power as well. And in my view, he's just more skilled. Teofimo, in my view, is just in a very bad place mentally. He's very jumbled. He's very mixed up. And in my view, he's pretty much lost right now. And I think that's why he said certain things that have been somewhat controversial. Now, like I said, could there be a racist component to it? There certainly could be. But this almost kind of reminds me of the Kendrick Perkins statement about the Nikola Jokic statement, where he tried to make the case about Nikola Jokic only winning the MVP because he was a quote-unquote Caucasian. I don't think that I would necessarily say that Kendrick Perkins is a quote-unquote racist, but I think that there's a part of him that takes a look at it because, let's be real, Kendrick Perkins as an NBA analyst, he's not really the sharpest tool in the shed when it comes down to, Kendrick Perkins. He took a look at it and he said, well, Nikola Jokic, he's getting these triple doubles as well. How come when Russell Westbrook and other players like LeBron James, how come when they were getting triple doubles, they're not criticized the same way? Because it's not the same situation. Nikola Jokic, and not to digress here or anything, but Nikola Jokic, when he gets triple doubles, sure, you can argue that he's stat padding here and there, but he does it much more in the flow of a game. Russell Westbrook has to have the number one usage rate, and he has to dominate the ball throughout the whole entire time. Nikola Jokic can do that off the ball. He can do that with the ball. So that's the great thing about Nikola Jokic. But that's what that kind of reminds me of. I think Teofimo, the way that he took a look at it, I think that there's an insecurity in the back of his mind to where he says, people are kind of moving off without me. And that my value is higher than this. I deserve better than this. And it seems like, they're taking these black fighters over me, like Shakur Stevenson, and Devin Haney. They're promoting these guys. And I noticed, at least in his view, that, Timothy Bradley or Andre Ward, that they were against me. They didn't commentate my fight well. I think that Teofimo Lopez, that in his sense, that he believes that there's been some bias against him to replace him with certain black fighters, and that ESPN is favoring certain black fighters in his weight division over him or around those weight divisions. So Dante can say, well, Teofimo, he didn't really have a problem when they promoted, Tyson Fury, anything like that, right? But you can't really compare that because Tyson Fury is nowhere near his same weight class. I think what Teofimo Lopez has a problem with, just my view of it, is that they're promoting certain fighters over him that are around his same weight class, and that Teofimo Lopez is no longer, at least at the current moment in time, looked at as one of the top guys there. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not looked at as one of the top guys there, but he's not looked at as the guy. And I think Teofimo Lopez wants to be looked at as the guy. But at the end of the day, Teofimo, you're not going to be looked at that position again unless you get another A-grade win. And to be honest with you, I'm not really sure how much longer Teofimo's career is going to last. Like I said, I don't think he's at a very good point mentally. I think that his mind is very fractured. I think that he's very lost, and I think that he has no sense of direction. And I think that in terms of his boxing skill set, the skill set is still there, but you can tell that Teofimo, after that George Kambosos loss, he's like, wow, how the hell did I lose to George Kambosos Jr.? How did I end up losing that fight? And he can say that he didn't end up losing that fight, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, Teofimo Lopez, he knows, in my view, that more than likely that he could have put on a better performance or that he ended up pretty much blowing that fight. So it is what it is. That's pretty much my view of it. I believe that Teofimo, that he believes that, he thinks ESPN is not treating him well. And I think it comes from the insecurity of that George Kambosos loss. And I think he's saying they're trying to replace me with these fighters like Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney and blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, well, if you want to replace me with these black fighters, then go ahead. I don't think that he necessarily meant anything super derogatory by it, but it came out as derogatory because Teofimo Lopez, once again, He's in a very, very mentally bad place right now. Just my view of it. And once again, it's going to take a lot of mental strength and a lot of direction, in my view. And I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to handle it to really turn his career back around. Because if he doesn't beat Josh Taylor, I don't really know where Teofimo Lopez is going to go from there. And he might very possibly go into a deep depression. And he may never be the same fighter again if he ends up losing to Josh Taylor. So this is going to be a big fight.
And it's so ironic because out of all the fighters Teo is comparing himself to when it comes to those black fighters, Teo is the only one that just suffered an L.
Well, you just gave yourself the answer, Dante. He's comparing himself to Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney and those guys. At least those are the fighters that I think that he's comparing himself to. And Keyshawn Davis, I believe, is a newer fighter around those weight classes. And Teofimo is starting to see the shift. He's starting to see that some of these guys are moving off of him a little bit because they don't think that he's, probably the investment that once upon a time they thought that he possibly was. And Teofimo sees it. It's kind of like overall, there was a great story of this one channel, I believe, that I watched, Chronicles of Judah 144. There was a story of Kobe Bryant when he was on the come up, and he tried to approach Shaquille O'Neal, and he tried to approach Penny Hardaway. And Shaquille O'Neal, when they first met, he took pictures with Kobe Bryant, I believe, possibly gave him an autograph, shook his hand. But Penny Hardaway, even though Kobe Bryant, I believe, was a fan of Hardaway, or at least wanted to shake his hand, Penny Hardaway brushed him off. And the reason why Judah believed that was because he more than likely saw Kobe Bryant as a future threat. And I think that's the same thing with Teofimo Lopez. He realizes that a lot of these guys, that they're starting to move on from him from a little bit. So this next fight is pretty much do or die for Teofimo Lopez, and he knows it.
And suffered an L to a guy that he was supposed to beat easy in George Kambosos. Let Teo tell it he doesn't like the way ESPN is treating Devin Haney, the guy that they wouldn't even put on the pound-for-pound list and had Lomachenko over him after Devin Haney became the youngest undisputed champion in the sport. Now Teofimo has the nerve to be upset because of the way they treat Devin Haney after Devin Haney beat the guy that Teofimo Lopez couldn't beat.
Well, this is the thing for me. And I understand Teofimo's perspective. I don't think that he's correct. But the thing overall is this. Teofimo Lopez, of course, is bitching and complaining that they're promoting Devin Haney higher than him. Listen, dude, at the end of the day, you have no one else to blame but yourself. You were supposed to win that George Kambosos fight, and Top Rank was on your side. They were on your side for a little bit, especially after that Vasily Lomachenko fight. And then not only did you leave Top Rank, when, that's your decision, it is what it is, but you blew that fight against George Kambosos. So you cannot blame them promoting Devin Haney a little bit when a grand fight could be on the horizon between himself and Vasily Lomachenko. And on top of that, now he's the complete unified champion of the weight division. So you can't really blame anyone else but yourself.
And beat him twice to win all of the belts. This situation pissed Teofimo Lopez off so much, he just blamed it on the entire black race. He also blamed it on Tim.
No, he didn't blame it on the entire black race. He was blaming it on the black fighters, I believe, or the commentators or ESPN for favoring black fighters, in his view, unfairly and unjustly. Is he right in that situation? No, in my view, he isn't. And at the end of the day, there is no such thing as fair in a business. It just is what it is. You only are going to receive the amount of attention and benefits as much as what you give them, period. It just is what it is. Conor McGregor, a lot of people look at the UFC and they say, oh, well, why does Conor McGregor still get this? Why does he still get title shots? Reason why that is because Conor McGregor could fight still anyone right now, even though he still very clearly is not one of the top guys anymore, at least to the same degree that he once was. He still could do hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of pay-per-view buys. That's the reason why Conor McGregor gets certain shots that other people don't. As certain people will say, there's exceptions for exceptional people. And Teofimo Lopez, he's starting to realize that right now, even though he's somewhat on that line, he's not looked at as exceptional as what he once was, because people are starting to realize that he's slipping up a little bit.
Bradley and Andre Ward, two of old media's biggest advocates. Two of old media's biggest advocates.
Hey, at the fighters meeting, I dissed Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley in front of ESPN production and all of them for all their affiliation and corruption that they do. Yeah. What happened? I put more weight on my back, and all they was talking about right away when I slipped with the first knockdown they called, I slipped. They called it right away with the ground. He said, he hurt.
Comments that has been made. Look at this, man. The game is 90% mental.
And Teofimo Lopez, I think that he's talking about the Sandor Martin fight. And once again, Teofimo Lopez, he's in a very delusional state of mind right now. And sometimes being in a delusional state of mind, sometimes it can help you, sometimes it can be a detriment. And right now, it is really being a detriment to Teofimo Lopez because he's not using it in the positive way. And a lot of people will say, well, how is delusion? How can that be used for positive? It can really be a great positive when you try to believe in yourself, but when it limits your growth and when it limits you moving forward in a positive way, that's when you have to try to kick your pride to the side. And right now, Teofimo Lopez, he doesn't know how to do that. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think he's going to learn until it's way, way, way too late. A lot of fighters are like that. So we'll see.
And I keep telling people's like, it's not. Yes, it is. It's 90% mental, bro. And when you're not mentally stable, bro, and you fighting those demons, you literally have to talk to yourself over and over and over. And if you don't have people around you to keep control of that and help you manage that, bro, it's gonna be a problem. I said before the fight, I said, man, I speaking to this guy in the fighter meeting, I don't know who the hell I was speaking to. I have no clue who I was speaking. I was like, who is this kid? Like, I've been following this kid and I've been working his fights for the last 3.5 years. I'm like, this is a completely different person. I mean, all over the place. You know, I'm not gonna tell you what he said or what. I'm not gonna get into all that, but I can just tell that something was not right, man. And I'm like, yo, the battle's not with Martin tonight. The battle's with himself.
I agree with you 100%, sir. And Teofimo Lopez has really been fighting with himself ever since probably the baby mama drama, and on top of that, ever since the George Kambosos loss. And so many people, including all of us, including myself and everybody, there's going to be certain shit that happens that's embarrassing, that is going to be very hard to move on from, especially because of certain mistakes that we made. And in boxing, that embarrassment pretty much quadruples because you lost to thousands upon millions of people watching. So, of course, it's very embarrassing, especially with all the shit that Teofimo Lopez talks and all sort of stuff. So, Teofimo Lopez, in the back of his mind, he probably cannot get over that loss because in his view, he's like, did I choke it away? Am I really as good as what I thought that I was? Do I still have it? Was I not as good as what I thought that I was? Like what's going on here? And that's why I'm saying he doesn't really have any sense of direction. He has no confidence in his ability to the same degree as what he once did. And that's why I'm saying, not only just because do I believe that Josh Taylor was always a more skilled fighter, but I don't have confidence in where Teofimo Lopez is mentally, and that's a big part of the reason of why I'm picking Josh Taylor to win that fight.
Something was off. So
There's one thing I'll say about Josh Taylor, even though he does have certain faults, he's going to bring it to you. Now, I do think that he personally lost to Jack Catterall fight, I believe, by rounds. I thought it was a very poor performance, by that of Josh Taylor, but I expect him to be better. And he's, pretty tough mentally. He's shown me that he can get past adversity. Teofimo Lopez, to be quite honest with you, even though, of course, he was able to get past Vasily Lomachenko, the first time that he really was shown adversity against a fighter that really tried to fight with him the whole entire fight. He failed that fight. Now, of course, he was able to get back, I believe, at Sandor Martin, but he was able to barely win that fight. And that was against a guy that really was not willing to exchange with him a great amount. So like I said, that Josh Taylor fight is going to reveal a lot about where Teofimo Lopez is mentally. In my view, I already know where he is mentally, but we'll see. You never truly know, so we'll see. But I have a great intuitive guess, so we'll see.
It's going to look spectacular tonight.
That's also going to reveal where Josh Taylor is in his career because it's going to reveal whether that Jack Catterall, performance was a fluke or whether he, is maybe not the same fighter or maybe he got a little bit exposed. We'll see.
And prove me wrong and my thoughts wrong, or it's going to look terrible tonight.
So that was Tim Bradley talking about the fighter meeting that they had with Teofimo Lopez, where he said that Teofimo was just off. But I want to go back to Teofimo blaming Andre Ward and Tim Bradley, not just ESPN, but blaming them on having an agenda to promote black fighters more than they would promote a Teofimo Lopez. Clearly, Tio has not been paying attention to the things that Tim Bradley says. Tim Bradley has been constantly dissing Gervonta Tank Davis, and he was originally the first person to start dissing Gervonta because Gervonta clapped back and dissed him on the whole Hall of Fame situation. But
Well, I need to ask this. Did he really diss Gervonta Tank Davis, or did he really just tell the truth about Gervonta Tank Davis? Now, if he's saying all these things about Gervonta Tank Davis, he can't beat this guy, he can't beat this guy, he's not that skilled, then maybe that's a little bit different. But if he's saying the things that I'm also saying, and that most people who know actual shit about boxing, which is that he's not really facing the greatest of competition, that's not really dissing anybody. That's just telling the truth. It just is what it is.
that was retaliation from what Gervonta or what Tim Bradley had already originally started saying about Gervonta. Tim Bradley just came out after the Ryan Garcia win, completely trashing Gervonta Tank Davis's resume, saying he's not.
Yes, because his resume is trash. To be quite honest with you, there's a reason why, once again, in my fight prediction for both Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Tank Davis, I told a bunch of you guys, or I said that whoever wins this fight is still more than likely not going to be within my top 10 pound for pound. Because who the hell do they have on their resume? I mean, Gervonta Tank Davis's best win is against Ryan Garcia. Like, the dude has never even won a belt. It's like, what am I supposed to do with your resume? You have almost 30 fights on your resume, and the three best wins you have in your career are over Mario Barrios, who was never really a legitimate champion in the first place, Leo Santa Cruz, who was a decent fighter, not a great one, and then, of course, Ryan Garcia, highly inexperienced, although very talented. Don't get me wrong, they're all decent wins, but he has no great wins on his record. No great ones. None. Even Terrence Bud Crawford has a decently great win in his career over Sean Porter. Like, what the hell has Gervonta Tank Davis in terms of a resume done in his career? It just is what it is. And that's why when Dante says that Gervonta is one of the new kings of boxing, that goes to show you that Dante really doesn't give a shit about resume in the first place. He has his own agenda afoot as well.
Fighting the best competition. And we all know these are racist talking points that he's getting from ESPN, the grand wizards of old.
Well, no, those aren't really racist talking points. What might be a racist talking point or something overall, if you want to say that, is if they're clearly not keeping the same standards. To where if they're maybe dissing Gervonta Tank Davis, but, they're propelling Ryan Garcia's resume up to be better, that'd be something that you might, make a point on with certain double standards. But to say that Gervonta Tank Davis's resume is not good, no, you can't say that that's a racist claim because it's true. and even even if it was a better resume, that I don't know if I would still claim that it was a racial thing, unless it was so repeated to where he obviously had a problem with it. But, Timothy Bradley's entitled to his opinion. But to be honest with you, I don't think that that's a racial thing at all. I think that it's the truth. And I've been saying the same shit for the past few years.
Media, Joe Tessitore, Mark Kriegel, Max Kellerman. It's just so ironic because by way of contrast, Tim Bradley, he never criticized Teofimo Lopez for fighting against Pedro Campo or Sandor Martin when Teofimo could have fought Arnold Barboza. He could have also fought Regis Prograis. But he decided to fight Pedro Campo. And he can't use the excuse that he's coming off of a loss because according to Teofimo, he never lost that fight to George Kambosos. He was completely robbed. Not only did he...
I someone agree with that. And like I said, Teofimo Lopez, he knows that truly deep down that he lost that fight. He knows because immediately after that fight, he came up with all this shit about, oh, I had a lot of shit going on, blah, blah, blah. Like fighters always do that shit. Deontay Wilder did the same shit after Tyson Fury. They always do that shit. They're like, oh, I thought that I got robbed, but I also had a lot going on and blah, blah, blah. So that's you deep down admitting that already either A, that you lost, or B, that you made it close enough to where, you possibly could have lost. So that was not your best form, at least in your view. Either way, Teofimo Lopez knew that he fucked up in that fight. It just is what it is. And he's got to try to move past it. And I get it. It's a very tough loss. Me as a person, I'm not a person that likes to take losses in competition either. I can take it a bit seriously as well. I get it. So imagine if it's a professional boxing match, and you can possibly get humiliated in that fashion. But Teofimo has got to try to move on from that loss. Because if he doesn't move on from that loss, it's going to affect the rest of his career.
win the fight because he was robbed, let him tell it.
I'll say it like this. Ryan Garcia, after his loss to Gervonta Tank Davis, and especially the amount of pressure that was on him to possibly win that fight for both fighters, he took that loss much, much better than Teofimo Lopez did. I'll say this. I have much more confidence in Ryan Garcia's future career than what I do Teofimo Lopez, at least at the moment, because at least Ryan Garcia, someone took it on the chin. Yeah, there were certain small excuses like, the weight and all sort of stuff. When some people believe that that's a valid excuse, it's up to you. I don't personally believe that it is because I think that Ryan Garcia, that he carried the weight pretty well. But for Teofimo Lopez, he almost looks like he's completely mentally checked out.
Also almost got killed by George Kambosos in the fight because he was dealing with health issues. This is Teo's story. And what makes Teo's story even funnier is he turned down a rematch. What fighter do you know has an excuse for why they lost the title? The new champion offers you a rematch and you turn it down. Teo ain't fooling nobody. So once again, I told you guys already, it makes no sense that Teofimo is going after Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley is one of the biggest followers of old media. He caters to almost every single talking point that they use on ESPN.
Well, I certainly don't agree with everything that Timothy Bradley says, but if you're going to bring up the point about how Gervonta Tank Davis has a poor resume, that's not really a good example. Because if we're really going to be real about it, he does have a poor resume. Once again, the biggest win of your career is over who? Ryan Garcia? Like, are you kidding me?
In fact, I told you, Tim Bradley, he criticizes Gervonta Tank Davis's record. He says he's not fighting anyone, even after he stops Ryan Garcia. But yet when Tim Bradley was calling the Teofimo Lopez fight versus Campo and Sandor, he never criticized Teofimo Lopez for his level of competition. Tim Bradley also was calling...
That also might be because of the standards that are on Gervonta Tank Davis. When certain people believe that they're on a higher level than what they actually deserve to be, they might say some, or it just might be that Timothy Bradley might be a little bit of both, who knows. It might also be because he works for ESPN and it's obvious that Bob Arum cannot stand Showtime or Al Heyman's ass,
Of course.
So definitely with certain things that Timothy Bradley says, you do have to take with a little bit of a grain of salt. But do I disagree with him about Gervonta Tank Davis? No, I don't disagree with him because I think he's right on the money. It's the same shit that I've been saying for years.
Stevenson boring. Bradley never called the Lomachenko versus Lopez fight boring. Even though the first 6 rounds there was really no action at all. He never even mentioned the word boring in that fight. In fact, Tim Bradley has never called...
Well, I think that fight, and I understand where Dante is coming from, but I think that from a perspective, you could argue that fight was going to be more interesting anyway, even though, in my opinion, yes, Lomachenko, he did run throughout a certain amount of that first half of the fight in the Teofimo Lopez fight, but that fight was going to be very interesting anyway, no matter what happened, because Lomachenko was the reigning champion, and it was possibly going to be a new takeover if Teofimo Lopez took over the fight, which of course he did. Shakur Stevenson was in there with the fighter, I believe, unless of course he was talking about the Oscar Valdez fight. But I believe the fight that he was talking about was another fight where he was against a guy that pretty much was a no-name. And he pretty much outboxed him very thoroughly, but wasn't able to get the stoppage, wasn't really able to be as impressive as what he could have been. So I kind of get Timothy Bradley's point there. I get Dante's point as well. But I think that there's a little bit more context behind that. Now, if you're talking about in the sense of Gervonta Tank Davis, he's boring and he's getting knockouts and he's boxing well, versus like Lomachenko, but yet he's entertaining, then that's a better point.
A fighter that was not black boring. And there have been plenty of fights on ESPN with non-black fighters that were not exciting fights. So Tim Bradley has always been loyal to Teofimo Lopez and everyone else on the Hope list. Which is why I completely agree with Tim Bradley when he said that Teofimo is all over the place mentally.
I agree with that as well.
Got to be all over the place when you're dissing the guys that are deferring to you. You're dissing the guys that support and cater you and go out of their way to support you. So when Teo was dissing...
Well, we'll see about that because I'm not really sure if they're going out of their way to support Teofimo Lopez. we'll see. I still think that they are catering to him a little bit. I would agree with Dante there, but I think Teofimo Lopez realizes that there's a little bit of a change on the horizon. And he realizes it's almost kind of like LeBron James that one year when Steph Curry probably should have became a two-time champion in the 2016 season. LeBron James was starting to see a changing of the guard, and he knew that he had to really put up or shut up in that season. And luckily, of course, for him, he was able to win when Golden State screwed up that 3-1 lead. And Teofimo Lopez is very similar. He realizes that he has to put up or shut up now, and he has a creeping insecurity because he realizes that, a lot of people that, they're kind of looking at him and it's like, all right, what are you really going to do here?
Andre Ward and Tim Bradley at the fighter meeting, they had to be really confused. Tim and Andre, they had to really be confused. Like, what are you talking about? We've been following this old media narrative. We've been fighting for you our hardest. And you're going after us for what? The reason Teo was going after Ward and Tim Bradley is because all he's seen was their black skin. Teo felt if they ever said anything positive about other black fighters, like Devin Haney or Keyshawn Davis, that meant that all these black fighters were in the same gang. Forget about...
No, that's not really what Teofimo thought. What Teofimo looks at it as, once again, he sees a changing of the guard. He takes a look at Timothy Bradley and Andre Ward. Now, of course, he takes a look at them both as black fighters, and he says, well, you're saying all these positive things about Keyshawn Davis and Shakur Stevenson and blah, 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 but then when it comes to my fights, you give me harsh criticism. So in Teofimo's mind, he believes that, there, much favoritism, towards black fighters. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, when you talk about your most recent fights, you have not really had an impressive performance ever since the Vasily Lomachenko fight if we're really going to go there. So it's like, what, are they supposed to lie about your performance? It just is what it is.
How many times they supported Teofimo and tried to defend him. Forget about all the times that Tim Bradley actually said that Teofimo was the undisputed champion, completely dissing Devin Haney when Devin Haney was the WBC champion. Teo doesn't care about...
Well, you know what? I agree with that, Dante, but if you're also going to use that, and I agree with you, stop calling certain people like Gervonta Tank Davis a champion at the 135-pound weight division. Like, how are you going to call him a champion at the 135-pound weight division when he has a regular belt? So I agree with you, but keep that same standard.
How many times Tim Bradley and Andre Ward praised and defended Teofimo Lopez? Teo doesn't care about how much ESPN praised other non-black fighters once again, like Tyson Fury, Lomachenko, and whoever else. Teo only...
Right, but dude, you're not getting it. Tyson Fury is not in his same weight division. And Vasily Lomachenko, they don't really push him the same way. I mean, they still push him a little bit. But, he's not really as insecure about Lomachenko because he already beat Lomachenko. So, once again, I think Dante is taking a look at this in the wrong way. But it doesn't really surprise me because, once again, Dante, he's not really the sharpest tool in the shed. It just is what it is. Everything he takes a look at, he just takes a look as an attack. He doesn't really take a look at it from the smartest of context. And there's no offense against Dante. I just don't find him to be the smartest of guys. It just is what it is. At least this is the way that I look at it. I'm not trying to offend anybody or anything, but that's just the way that I view it.
He has a problem with black fighters getting any type of praise. I said this in my last video about this, and I'm going to say it again. Teo's father came out, and he said that his son believes that ESPN, they're promoting the black fighters more than they're promoting his son. If that is the case, you're supposed to go after those fighters. You're supposed to say, okay, you think that these guys are good, these guys are special, you're trying to say these guys are better than me, then that's who I want to fight next. Because this is what black...
I would agree with that.
...fighters have been doing since the inception. This always happens with black fighters. Old media...
Well, certain black fighters, because let's also be real. Certain fighters like Gervonta Tank Davis and Jamal Charlo, and other fighters out there, let's be real, they have not really been too big on facing the greatest of competition. And I don't give a shit who likes that. It just is what it is.
They find a non-black fighter to hype up. They say that he's the greatest thing in the world. He's pound for pound, top 200 best fighter in the world. And when they overhype their favorite fighters on the hope list, they put a curse on those fighters. Why? Because it puts a bigger target on that fighter's back. Because that's when all the black fighters and even other non-black fighters starts going after that one fighter that old media is now saying is pound for pound the best, the greatest in the world, the greatest ever who's ever done it. This is the reason why Devin Haney wants to fight Lomachenko so bad.
I would somewhat agree with that, but once again, I've always disagreed with Dante when he tried to say that neither Lomachenko nor Canelo, that they were not number one pound for pound fighters, because both of those guys, they truly were the number one pound for pound fighter. But Dante, once again, it's very hard to trust his analyzations because he looks at things from a very limited point of view. He basically takes a look at things and he says, oh, they're trying to tear us down, they're trying to do that. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the times, they might be, or they are. But you also got to take a look at things from a logical and objective context and say, okay, does this guy actually have results? And Dante doesn't have that ability.
This is the reason why Stephen Fulton is willing to fly all the way to Japan and wants to fight Inoue so bad. This is why Andre...
That's going to be a very interesting fight, because if Naoya Inoue, if he actually does end up winning that fight, or Naoya Inoue, however you pronounce his name, if he does end up winning that fight, he's right there with anybody as the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. Because he's clearly been the most dominant fighter within the past few years, undoubtedly. But of course, it's not been against the greatest of competition in my view. So if he's actually able to fold over Stephen Fulton, he'll probably be my number one pound for pound fighter.
Ward won a Gennady Golovkin.
I don't believe that's personally going to happen. I think that if Inoue does win, it's going to be a very hard fought battle. Or it could possibly be 8 rounds to 4. In my view, I probably would favor Stephen Fulton just by a smidge, but you never know.
This is why everybody wanted Canelo, and so on and so forth. So the question is, once again, if Teofimo feels that ESPN, they're promoting, supporting, and hyping up the black fighters, promoting them more than you, why aren't you going after those black fighters? And that's a rhetorical question. We all know why he won't do it. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. All right, now check this out, guys.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening in Teofimo Lopez's career, because he's at the 140-pound weight division right now. And I think that he pretty much took the greatest fight that he possibly could, which of course was the Josh Taylor fight. Now, would I have advised him to take that fight next? No, I would have probably rather seen the Arnold Barboza fight, but, it is what it is. And the reason why I say that is to give Teofimo more experience. But, that's his decision, not mine. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Anyways, best of luck to Teofimo Lopez. I don't personally like where he's at mentally. I agree with Timothy Bradley. I think that he's very lost and he does not have a sense of direction. And it's very clear that his mind is very mentally fractured. It's a little bit broken right now. So let's see what ends up happening in that fight. I believe it ends up happening in June. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's all about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.